All right, folks, this is Hexy. We are no longer driving on Stalingrad. We're going to call this one right here. And it's not necessarily the reason, but looky there. They're in Stalingrad, so there's 20 victory points right there. A few turns left, but I can't see anything. I can't see any future for the, for the Russians or in this because they just can't get enough in the south. Even though they had a couple turns with 4 and 5, units coming in, the Germans or the Axis, once they got pushed across at Rostov and started, there was just nothing. The Soviets couldn't do anything. All right, so right now it's just over a 2-1 victory for the Germans, but they would add a bunch more victory points down here in the bottom. I don't know if it would get them to 3-1, but I think they would be able to easily maintain their 2-1. So, all right. So, first off, this was a blast. All right, this game, it plays smooth, it flows well, plays smooth. The rules are not real deep. The only rules that I'm still probably questionable about with understanding is German, the railheads and the air. Of course, I didn't use air as often as probably I should have. I did use it on some overruns. I did use it on some attacks, and even for the Russians once they had 4 air bases on the map or whatever, 4 air units. The Don River, for the Soviets having to maintain their ground on the Don River, that takes quite a few units up there. You can see that line. It's got to stay, you've got to cover all the hexes either by zone of control or a unit. So that peels a lot of the force away from defending the Stalingrad area and then definitely the southern regions of the map. German mechanized units, panzer divisions, and the motorized infantry, that's a wrecking ball. And then trying to counter them with Soviet attacks, especially if you got a lot of untried units, you don't know what you're going to get. And then, of course, when these things have their divisional integrity, it's even more painful. Although the Russians did inflict some damage on these panzer divisions. Now, how'd those guys get into Stalingrad? Well, what happened is they were able to break out here and circle around, and I massed all the panzer divisions down this way, and they got enough units out of the way and along this river line right here that they had enough movement points to dash up in there. And I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did, and they were able to shoot up and get into the city itself right there and just over. There was nothing. I had nothing there. I had an air base in there that had to be pulled out. Don't know if if not this turn, they'd have been in there in the next turn because, like I say, with the zone of control rule, you can't pull stuff out. Once you're in zone of control, you got to stay there until combat drives you out. So I mean, just in the case of the Germans, if you want to maintain contact and not allow something to leave, you don't attack. You just stay in that zone of control. The game is not overly punishing on 1-1 and 2-1 odds for the attacker or the defender. I mean, it's somewhat balanced. Most of the stuff is retreating. If you can't retreat, you're going to take a step loss, and you maneuver. The Germans have enough forces to do that, to pin units into zone of control where they just can't get out. And I got a lot of big kills on Russian units by doing that on like 2-1s, 3-1s, even a couple of 1-1s. And of course, the Russians returned the favor to the Germans, just not enough. And like I said, I think a lot of it is because, I didn't have that Don River covered for the longest time, and the Germans built up a lot of points there. But I did get it covered, and then I had some hope that the Russians would be able to form some kind of defense down here, and it just wasn't happening. I mean, you can look at this gap right through here. This is all Axis, except for that disrupted unit that got overrun, and then some out of supply units. You just can't. And then, of course, you got the Soviets have to have their headquarters. Their leaders have to be there to provide supply. There's no tracing to a rail line and then back off the map like the actual German units can do. The minor allies for the Germans, they have to use headquarters. So there's enough to. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups sort of minor Axis allies and 4 headquarters to cover them. Although these guys down here for a little while were out of supply, so they were moving really slow. And that's why they haven't probably taken all this stuff here. But there was another 10 victory points here, 5 here, 5 here, 5 here, and then the Astrakhan, or not Astrakhan, yeah, Astrakhan exit down here on the map, which I don't think I need to worry about that. I mean, it'd be easy for the Germans to exit 3 units off there, just move one of the Panzer divisions and they're gone. So if you got this thing and you never played it, get it out and play it. Play the original rules. That's what I did. People say the errata is better, okay? People are saying the DG version's not so good from what I understand, but I'd be willing to try it. Everybody's got their own taste. So this game's a keeper. And I don't think I'll ever let this one go because I'm sure I think I'm going to want to get this out again and maybe play it with the errata, the rules with the errata, and see, whatever the updated versions of the rules were, and to see what kind of outcome I can get. It was tough. It wasn't as easy through the middle because you can see we never really did. I mean, we got across the river here, but the Soviets just countered them. Only problem is everything was being used to counter, and I left nothing back in Stalingrad. And like I said, I didn't foresee that happening. Now, you'd think that these guys are going to go out of supply, but at the moment of movement or combat, you check supply. Well, they have air they can fly in there, and one airpoint can supply 5 units. So if the Germans have a couple air units sitting there, which they will, they'll just fly in there and supply those guys. All right, big fun. Drive on Stalingrad, SPI 1977. Other little weird mechanics. I still would like to get these rail supply rules. I'd like to get the understanding of the original rules. I think I was doing it right where you can just pick up 2 railheads and move them along a rail line to where the German units were last to pass through it or something like that. And I know that Don Johnson was out to tell me about the errata rules. It's like 3 hexes per turn or something like that. I can't remember. And like I say, the number of air points kind of stymied me a little bit, but I don't think I used it so much that it was any kind of imbalance. Plus, it's just a die roll modifier. Let's use it for interdiction. All right, so there you go. Drive on Stalingrad. German marginal victory, I believe it was, if it's between 2-1 and 3-1. And if it's over 3-1, it's decisive and it's an end of game. Well, we're going to end it right here. We've only got about, looks like 5 turns left. So, all right. Like I said, if you got it, play it. If you played it, let me know what you think of it. I know a lot of people are saying that they love this game. They played it a lot when they were younger, back in the 70s and early 80s. And I wish I'd have never missed it back then because, I mean, I love the look of the game. I love the counters, and I love the rule set that's in it. And, you know, a 1-page player's aid chart for combat and movement, stuff like that, that's awesome. All right, let's get this posted so y'all can see that the Axis did take Stalingrad, are getting a win here, and don't know if it could happen again. All right. We're going to work on what's next on the table. Talk to y'all soon.